Once you arrive at the aircraft, the first step you're going to take is to ensure that the aircraft forms that you have on board actually match the aircraft. Now we're going to cover 781 procedures in a separate video at a later time, so please reference that video for specific procedures on 781. The other publication that's kept on board the aircraft that you need to reference is the weight and balance. On the second page, you'll find the weight and balance record. What you want to do is ensure that the most recent weighing of the aircraft is still current. And these forms are normally kept in the compartment next to the jump seat. Second step of the checklist is cargo passenger compartment checked. You'll want to check to ensure that any additional seats, if installed, are securely fastened to the aircraft. Looking at the top of the fuselage, ensure that all the oxygen mask containers are closed and flush. Any passenger reading lights are off, and that any of the interior window shades are in the full up position. Continuing with the cargo inspection, we're going to check the first aid kit and survival kit. Each one of these has its own inspection card. You're ensuring that the seal is not broken, and also that the inspection is up to date. These cards show who the technician was that inspected them, what the date due is, and when it was last inspected. For the lavatory inspection, we're ensuring that there are no obvious leaks, and we'll inspect the knife valve to ensure that it's at least 1/4 of an inch open. You access the knife valve through this compartment. Next item, if you have the need for a life raft, it'll be stowed in the very aft portion of the aircraft under that webbing. Moving forward, the avionics rack. Looking for the overall condition, panels to be secure, and if you have to update the database, there's an access door here to insert a floppy disk. Your IP can show you how to do that if necessary. Circuit breakers are all in. When you inspect the aft fire extinguisher, you want to ensure that the inspection card is up to date, and also that it's properly stowed in its location. Moving to the escape hatch, first thing you'll notice is this device, which will secure your LPUs if your sortie requires you to have them on board. You want to look around the perimeter, visually inspect the perimeter of the escape hatch, and be sure that it's flush with the interior of the fuselage. You want to remove the foam pad and inspect the hinges and ensure that they're properly installed on the pins. Now this is what it would look like if you were actually installing the escape hatch onto the pins. Place the Velcro foam pad. Then you want to remove the pin. To do so, depress the button and pull, removing the pin from the hole. Pull the entire clip off, and then you'll stow this in the map case. Finally, you'll notice the crash axe. You want to ensure that it's actually in place and that it's properly fastened and secured to the interior fuselage of the aircraft. Okay, the next item, flight publications checked. Now we've already checked the aircraft forms that again reference the specific video on 781 procedures, but you want to ensure that they're stowed properly. We've got the aircraft forms and the weight and balance book stored here in the map compartment, and you want to be sure that they're properly fastened and secured. Also, the second fire extinguisher on board the aircraft, just aft of the co-pilot's position. We're going to check it in the same manner as the aft fire extinguisher. Inspection up to date, properly fastened. For the galley inspection, it's not required to check the circuit breaker unless you anticipate using it during the flight. Now to do so, you depress this door, remove it entirely, and lift and pull out the hot beverage container. The circuit breaker itself will be located inside the aft part of that container. Finally, to secure loose items in the aft cargo compartment, remove the cargo strap, which is stowed under the jump seat. You want to run it through the handles of any of the luggage, helmet bag, any personal items that you have. Use the eyelets that are installed in the floor of the aircraft, and then just give it a quick tug. Keep things from moving around during flight. Third step on the checklist is the removal of the control lock. A pin is inserted in the forward portion of the yoke. You'll pull it out, and that will allow the mechanism to release at the base of the yoke and the rudder pedals. You want to take this and securely wrap it and stow it during the flight. Two options to store this. Most typically it's put in the same compartment as the publications. You also have two snaps below that compartment that you can secure it. Continue with the checklist. Step 4, gear handle down. Visually confirm this. Throttles the cutoff position. As a reference, this is in idle. Lift up on the lever and go to the full aft position. That's cutoff. Engine start selector to off. I'm going to press the AHRS battery test button. Press and hold for 5 seconds and ensure that the AHRS annunciator is illuminated for that time period. Step 8 of the checklist, batteries 2 on and armed. As a note, I want to remind you to announce to the crew anytime you apply power or change power supplies. So crew, applying power. Battery switch on, and standby power armed. Confirm that you have good battery voltage. That's at least 22 volts. Then select inverters, number 1 and number 2, on. We'll confirm that we've got good voltage from them by looking at the gauge over here beside the pilot. To check the voltage on the inverters, need to cycle it through each of the positions and ensure that the proper voltage, either 26 or 115, is indicated for each respective position. And then return the selector switch to the number 1 inverter 115 volt position, which is the 12 o'clock position. Want to ensure that the inverter selector switch is in the auto or center position and that the guarded switch is down. For the fuel quantity check, we want to compare the indicated fuel on board with what's logged in the aircraft forms, and that's going to be shown on the reverse side of the 781H hotel. Those two numbers need to be within 50 pounds of one another. Moving on to the battery feed test, the first step is to put the integral lights on and then press the battery feed test button. First indication is going to be the battery feeder fail light. We'll confirm that the standby power is on. Uncage the standby attitude indicator and check to be sure that it's functioning, and it can be recaged. Left ITT gauge should be illuminated. This is going to be difficult to see during daylight hours. Standby instrument are illuminated. Same thing applies. And confirm that the number 1 RTU is illuminated. We'll then select emergency on the battery switch. Our indications are going to be instrument floodlights illuminated, difficult to see during daylight hours. AC bus shed annunciator illuminated. Left N1 and the left N2 are operating. RTU1 is powered. Battery cutoff and inverter 1 fail annunciators both illuminated. The AOA indexer is operating, and the co-pilot's clock is illuminated. We'll then give the signal to the crew chief to apply power. We do so by giving him this signal. After getting a visual indication from the chief that he's applied power, we'll select on with the battery switch. Then look to see that we've got good GPU power. That's indicated by 28 volts. And if we do, we'll give the chief a thumbs up. It should be mentioned here that the battery, if GPU is available, we will select on. If GPU is not available, then we'll turn both batteries off to conserve power for the battery start. Continuing, step 15, radio masters as required. And again, if GPU is available, we'll select on. Non-essential buses are on. Aux temp control as required. Should be noted that aux heating or cooling can be used if the GPU is available and both your non-essential buses are on. There's a caution in the dash 1 before selecting aux cool. Ensure that the environmental scoop plug is removed before selecting it. Final item in the checklist is passenger briefed as required. Now if you do have passengers that day, reference your checklist. You've actually got a checklist here to brief the passengers. We've also got guidance in our in-flight guide. And that completes the before exterior inspection.